What is the actual issue? You know, when Trump owns every issue 80-20 by almost every metric, from the economy to crime to immigration, where are you? The high ground maneuver of common sense has relegated it into more extreme measures. Ask Obama, okay.
I think what pulls it all together is that no one person did any of that.
So he's sitting around on a June Thursday thinking about himself and his glory days. And to your point, Smug, I'm starting to warm up to Michelle Obama's POV. I mean, like, what is he doing?
Here, there's two weird things about this. Why is, weird. It's weird Obama's doing this while all this other stuff is going on. Right. Like, shouldn't he be helping out Joe?
Right.
Like, he totally ghosts Joe. I always say that he's like the guy, whenever you go to a party with somebody that you don't like and you try to lose them at the party, that's what Obama has done to Joe. He's lost them at the party, and now he's moving on. And then he tweets, and then you find out that he's tweeting about something else.
We'll be remiss if we do not do at least one clip from the Barack Michelle Obama appearance, the podcast, because everybody thinks they're going to.
Of course, rumors continue to escalate for the Obamas. Hopefully they can settle it like men. Terrible that you would applaud that.
That I have no doubt you do, because you do it publicly whenever you can. You when was the last time you said anything kind about him? I mean, like, it's a 99-to-1 ratio in your public comments. So that's their rule. She and her daughters can tease him mercilessly, and he is not allowed to say anything about becoming over there on the other side of the couch. Only compliments allowed. Only praise. And by the way, I got a tip for you. Pro tip, Barack. It'll never be enough.
The takedown ignited with a focus on one of the most bewildering moments of the Obama era, the Nobel Peace Prize. Greg Gutfeld, with that signature smirk that signals a truth bomb is imminent, zeroed in on the sheer absurdity of Obama accepting the world's most prestigious award for peace before he had even finished unpacking his bags in the Oval Office. This wasn't an award for achievements, it was an award for potential, for a feeling. But as the years unfolded, that feeling soured into a grim irony. The administration that began with a peace prize went on to dramatically escalate the use of drone warfare, launching strikes across the Middle East with a frequency that was both unprecedented and terrifying. It was a bizarre paradox, a Nobel laureate presiding over a kill list, raining down missiles on suspected militants in countries like Pakistan and Yemen, often with tragic and disputed civilian casualties. The disconnect between the image of a global peacemaker and the reality of a commander-in-chief running a remote-controlled war was a chasm Gutfeld and Kelly were more than willing to explore.
We have to use our voices to make these choices clear to the men that we love. Our lives are worth more than their anger and disappointment.
What's that pitter-patter sound I'm hearing in the background? It's a footstep.
Gutfeld, a master at sniffing out hypocrisy, then pivoted to the so-called economic recovery that became a cornerstone of the Obama legacy. While the administration celebrated saving the auto industry and stabilizing Wall Street, a vast swath of middle America felt completely left behind. Obama inherited an economic catastrophe. No one disputed that, but his solution seemed to prioritize the very institutions that caused the crisis. The big banks received colossal stimulus packages and bailouts, their executives returning to massive bonuses, while ordinary Americans faced a brutal landscape of foreclosure notices, stagnant wages, and job insecurity. Gutfeld painted a vivid picture of a recovery that was hollow at its core, a jobless recovery for many, where the stock market soared, but the Main Street experience was one of struggle and disillusionment. The administration's lectures on resilience and grit rang hollow to families watching their manufacturing jobs disappear overseas, making the whole economic narrative feel like a stylish, but ultimately useless, paint job on a car with no engine.
President Obama's farewell speech soared, towered, dragged. Drew, it was longer than Reagan's, Clinton's, and GWB's speeches combined. If it got any longer, it would have qualified as a third term. I hope he doesn't ask for anything.
I do have one final ask of you as your president. The same thing I asked you when you took a chance on me 8 years ago.
Then, the conversation turned to the landmark legislative achievement, the Affordable Care Act, a sprawling bureaucratic behemoth that was sold to the American public with a cascade of buzzwords and grand promises. Megyn Kelly masterfully highlighted the central, glaring irony of calling a program affordable when, for millions, it led to skyrocketing premiums, crippling deductibles, and shrinking networks of doctors. The infamous pledge, "If you like your healthcare plan, you can keep it," became a punchline as cancellation letters flooded mailboxes across the country. And who could forget the disastrous launch of the HealthcareGov website? It was a technical meltdown of epic proportions, a digital monument to government incompetence that loaded slower than one of his famously long-winded speeches. This domestic quagmire was mirrored by a foreign policy that seemed guided by whim rather than strategy. Reg pointed to the chaotic intervention in Libya, which ousted Gaddafi but plunged the nation into violent anarchy, creating a haven for extremists. He mocked the now infamous Red Line in Syria, a bold declaration that turned out to be written in disappearing ink as Assad remained firmly in power, unleashing horrors on his own people. The only consistency in Obama's foreign policy, it seemed, was its utter and complete inconsistency.
It's amazing. Every word she says about Barack Obama is negative. I can't think of her sitting there just waxing poetic about him, complimenting, he's brilliant, he's a great dad, he was the greatest president, whatever a normal wife of Barack Obama would say. Every time she opines, it's something that reflects poorly on him, how he's insensitive, how he's not a talker, how he doesn't know how to relate to people, he doesn't keep the same schedule as she does, and now we're talking about you can have a bad decade in a marriage?
Of course, no critique of the Obama years would be complete without examining his relationship with the media, which Gutfeld often described as his one true, unconditional love affair. The press coverage during his presidency was so overwhelmingly positive, so devoid of critical inquiry, that it often felt less like journalism and more like officially sanctioned fan fiction, just with a bigger budget for lighting. Gutfeld delivered one of his most memorable lines on this topic, declaring Obama didn't drain the swamp, he threw it a dinner party and invited the press to cover the catering. Despite trillions of dollars in new spending and a revolving door of administration insiders cashing in on lucrative lobbying gigs, Obama masterfully maintained his posture as an outsider, a crusader against the very establishment he now commanded. The central paradox was baffling. How could a man spend 8 years in the most powerful office on the planet and still manage to portray himself as the scrappy underdog fighting the system? It was a performance for the ages, enabled by a media that seemed all too eager to print the legend.
So let's analyze. He says Fox goes out of its way to locate and then demonize the poor. For what reason? So we can kill and eat them? His criticism is absurd because he never suggests a motive. FNC is always focused on policies that keep the poor, not the poor themselves. And that's scary to progressives like Obama who fear that their ideology will be exposed as the culprit behind so much present misery.
Megyn Kelly then steered the conversation toward a more sensitive, yet crucial, aspect of his legacy, the state of racial division in America. She argued that President Obama, as the nation's first black president, was handed a historic, once-in-a-generation opportunity to be a true unifier, to heal old wounds and bring Americans together across racial lines. Instead, critics contend he often chose to weigh in on racially charged incidents in a way that seemed to stoke tensions rather than soothe them, speaking not to the entire nation but to specific constituencies. Rather than leading hearts and minds toward common ground. He was often seen as lecturing from a moral high horse, a platform that felt increasingly built on straw men and selective outrage. This pattern of missed opportunities seemed to continue into his post-presidency, which has been a masterclass in staying relevant through passive-aggressive commentary. While most former presidents adopt a posture of graceful retirement, Obama embarked on a global tour of veiled criticisms, secured massive Netflix and book deals, and released suspiciously timed statements on current events. Gutfeld brilliantly compared him to a prom king who graduated a decade ago but still shows up at the school dance to dispense unsolicited advice, all while pretending his own hands are completely clean.
Michelle Obama's still at it. And in this particular soundbite, she's got thoughts on relationships. Listen here.
Relationships are long and there are also ebbs and flows, right? So I think sometimes people who date don't realize that, you know, in long-term relationships, you're gonna have deep dips, and you're gonna have
a bad year.
You're gonna have a bad. I tell people, and folks think that this is harsh. It's like you're gonna have a bad decade.
Yeah,
you know. I mean, I've been married to my husband for 30 plus years. I mean, the truth is, if you add it all up, even the year.
Megyn drove the point home by highlighting the stunning paradox at the heart of his political machine. While Obama delivered soaring speeches about dignity, decency, and a new kind of politics, his allies were allegedly weaponizing federal agencies and building a formidable cancel culture empire fueled by identity politics and a sense of smug elitism. It was a masterstroke of political jiu-jitsu, using the language of unity to more effectively divide the population into warring tribes. Greg then tore into the grand illusion, the pervasive myth that the years from 2008 to 2016 were a golden era of perfection. He argued the reality was far grimmer, a sluggish economy propped up by government spending, a military stretched thin and depleted, and a sense of global respect that was largely an illusion maintained by glamorous photo ops and apology tours. He was, as Gutfeld put it, the guy who shows up to a disaster site with a set of perfect blueprints, gives an inspiring speech, takes a selfie for his legacy, and then leaves while others are left to clean up the rubble and actually rebuild. This desperate attempt to control the narrative was on full display during his post-presidency, a one-man parade where he tried to rewrite his...
If the odds were you're going to be married to your partner for 50 years, and 10 of those years could be bad.
The critique didn't stop there, as Megyn turned her sharp legal mind to the state of education under Obama. The Common Core initiative, which was supposed to standardize excellence and elevate American students, instead became a source of immense frustration. It managed to simultaneously confuse parents with convoluted methodologies, infuriate teachers with rigid federal mandates, and make basic math look like an esoteric conspiracy theory. At the same time, the student loan crisis exploded under his watch. Universities, flush with guaranteed government-backed loan money, did the final, devastating blow with a simple, brutal assessment: if Barack Obama was a political genius, then the very definition of mediocrity needs a drastic update. The truth, he argued, is that he was a master of illusion, a walking, talking, teleprompting contradiction whose entire career was built on a foundation of charisma without courage and style over substance.
Speaking of Barack Obama, he decided to drop a post on X today, and I thought, okay, maybe in the wake of the Pete Hegseth presser, he's going to say something like, no matter how you feel about the Iranian strike, hats off to our, boys in blue, our guys in the bombers. He went a different way. This is what it was.
Curious how you're thinking about this eulogy specifically in the moment and all the tensions that you just brought out.
I didn't even want to talk. I was so mad. Part of the reason I think I ended up having anything to say at that moment was when I heard some of the victims' families forgive the shooter. And I thought, all right, let's see if maybe this is a way America can hear me.
The post-presidency tour has only amplified these contradictions, transforming the former statesman into a global influencer whose moral compass seems to spin wildly depending on the audience. While he preaches about the existential threat of climate change, he does so from the comfort of private jets and sprawling seaside mansions, a hypocrisy so blatant it is almost comical. Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly have become the unofficial auditors of this legacy, holding up the receipts on his multi-million-dollar speaking fees and lucrative Netflix deals, all while he lectures the world on the perils of wealth inequality. Gutfeld compares the spectacle to a magician lecturing his audience on poverty while charging them a fortune for tickets, with the rabbits he pulls from his hat all sporting a sponsorship logo. Meanwhile, the media interviews remain softer than a bag of cotton balls, carefully curated to reinforce the myth rather than challenge it. It's a PR campaign so effective that the image of Barack Obama has become less of a former public servant and more of a gluten-free, artisanal, political marshmallow appealing on the surface, but utterly devoid of substance.
When a girlfriend comes to visit, it's usually like, you got to stay for 2 days because it's going to take us
so much time to come to
check up. Now, Barack's come in, he's come out, and he's like, y'all still talking? He'll sit down for 5 minutes, be like, how are the boys? And the flip side of my husband, right? Because he golfs. And golfing takes as long as the first session of our, it takes 5 hours to golf. He'll golf with his buddies, come back, and be like, how's X? He's good. He's like, what'd y'all talk about? Nothing.
President Obama took another stand against evil yesterday, lashing out at ISIS, pernicious gang crime and human rights abuses in left-wing dictatorships like Venezuela and Cuba. I was kidding. He went after Fox News again.
I think the effort to suggest that the poor are sponges, leeches, don't want to work, are lazy, are undeserving, got traction. And look, it's still being propagated. I mean, I have to say that, if you watch Fox News on a regular basis, it is a constant menu. They will find.
Greg masterfully skewers this transformation of Obama into America's self-appointed cultural conscience, a man who casually inserts himself into every major issue with vague platitudes like, "We need to do better," delivered with the profound smuggness of someone who believes they've just invented basic human decency. Megyn takes this a step further, pointing out the stark hypocrisy of the man who promised the most transparent administration in history, now operating from behind a media firewall thicker than a Cold War bunker. This deep dive wasn't just about his post-presidency or foreign policy blunders. It was a wholesale takedown of the economic fairy tales spun from the White House podium, a theatrical performance where the dramatic pauses were more memorable than the actual policies. The entire critique wasn't just a series of isolated attacks. It was a relentless, accelerating demolition of a political brand built on a foundation of sand. If you found this breakdown illuminating, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and ring the notification bell so you never miss an unveiling. We want to know what you think. Was Obama a master statesman or a master illusionist? Drop your thoughts and any details we might have missed in the comments below.